All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking Lecture 23A of the series, zeroing in on Imam Ali's incredibly detailed prophecies regarding the end times and the Turks. We're looking at a voice from the 7th century that laid out geographic and military predictions with such astonishing precision that, well, history actually caught up and fulfilled some of them centuries later, while others seem to map out a complex sequence of events that are still yet to come.
Just put yourself in the shoes of a 7th century audience in Arabia for a second. Imam Ali delivers this chillingly precise physical description of an invading army, centuries before the Mongols or Turkic tribes ever swept into the Islamic world. He doesn't just give some vague warning, he describes their literal bone structure, saying they have faces like hammered shields. He describes their distinct armor, their silk and brocade clothing, and the purebred horses they ride. He even warns of killing so severe that the wounded will literally have to walk over the dead. It's an absolutely terrifying portrait of a totally alien force.
So, to unpack these complex narrations, we're going to break this down into 4 movements: the historical anchor, the escalating signs, the military sequence, and finally, the cosmic shift.
Let's start with Movement 1, the historical anchor, where we look at past fulfillments.
After hearing this terrifying, hyper-specific military prophecy, one of his companions asked the exact question any of us would naturally ask: have you been given the knowledge of the unseen? It's a huge moment. They're basically asking, is this magic? Do you have divine omniscience? How on earth could you possibly know the facial structure and battle tactics of a people we haven't even met yet? And Ali's response clarifies a really crucial theological point. He actually laughed and explained that no, he doesn't possess the exclusive knowledge of Allah, things like exactly when the hour will occur. Instead, this is inherited knowledge. He was passing down prophetic knowledge taught directly to him by the prophet. He said the prophet taught it to him and prayed that his chest would retain it. So this completely grounds the prophecy in a structured transmission of divine warning, rather than just fortune-telling.
And here is where it gets crazy. Fast forward several centuries. According to historical sources, a prominent 13th century scholar named Ibn Abi al-Hadid personally witnessed the devastating Mongol and Tatar invasion sweeping in from the east, and he documented that these invading armies perfectly matched the exact hammered shield faces and the silk and brocade that Ali had outlined over 500 years prior. For scholars living through that era, history had literally caught up to the text.
Which brings us to Movement 2, the escalating signs. The Al-Jafr text maps out a very specific, escalating timeline of signs preceding the Mahdi. It starts up above with a sign from the sky, and then moves down to earth with catastrophic earthquakes, specifically pinpointing eastern Turkey. That event then triggers a sequence of massive global unveilings. We're talking about the Euphrates River receding to reveal hidden treasures, the sealed vaults of the Egyptian pyramids finally opening up, and all of this culminates in the Mahdi performing physical restorations at the Prophet's mosque in Medina.
Let's zoom in on that very first trigger for a second. The text explicitly states, God will shake their earthquakes when they insult the book of their Lord. So this divine sign is inextricably tied to a moral collapse. And modern commentators point out how this mirrors the highly specific geographic tremors of our modern era, pinpointed exactly in the eastern lands of Turkey, totally distinct from the West. It's essentially the earth having a physical reaction to a spiritual transgression.
Moving right along to Movement 3, the military sequence.
These texts are absolutely brilliant at illustrating the strategic flow of the end times. They get incredibly specific, noting that the very first banner the Mahdi ties will be sent to a type of the Turks, and he will defeat them. That's the opening engagement. It's only after clearing this initial hurdle that his campaign marches onward to conquer the Levant. So the text clearly positioned the Turks as the primary foundational obstacle that has to be dealt with before the wider campaign can even expand.
Now, as the conflict heats up, the narrations describe this really cryptic countdown. They mention a reddish-white infidel who rises up and is quickly killed, followed by someone demanding his blood. But the real pivotal trigger in this whole sequence is the killing of the 7th-of-the-Turks. That specific event is what unleashes absolute chaos. The Bedouins scatter, roads are completely cut off, hardship skyrockets, and massive calamities begin raining down on the land of Babylon.
And speaking of Babylon and Iraq, we definitely have to talk about Al-Zawraa. Before Baghdad was even built, Imam Ali described it perfectly using this ancient prophetic name. He foretold its Abbasid construction, describing this land of tamarisk trees that would become heavily populated. But he didn't just predict its rise, he predicted its moral collapse, calling it a house of amusement and play, plagued by terrifying injustice, wicked leaders, and corrupt reciters.
Because of all that deep-rooted corruption, Al-Zawraa is destined for a horrific sack. And the text gives us what is essentially a forensic sketch of the invading army. Small eyes, hammered shield faces, iron clothing, hairless and beardless. Led by this unstoppable king with an incredibly loud voice who crushes every banner raised against him. This description is so insanely accurate that historical scholars reportedly presented the text to a commanding Mongol general, who actually confirmed it perfectly described his own people. How wild is that?
Finally, we hit movement 4, the cosmic shift.
This is a moment of just absolute awe. The narration says that as the angels in heaven tremble, Gabriel makes a global announcement. He descends upon the Rock of Jerusalem and cries out to the entire world, "The truth has come and falsehood has perished." This isn't just some local political transition, it's a worldwide broadcast to humanity that the era of oppression is officially over and the Mahdi has emerged.
Right after this cosmic announcement, Imam Ali shares what I think is the emotional core of this entire prophecy. He's speaking directly to his son, Hussein, using this poignant poetry. He tells him, "My son, if the Turks mobilize, then wait for the wilayah of a Mahdi who stands and acts justly." He's assuring his lineage that when you see these massive Eastern armies mobilizing, don't despair. It's actually the prerequisite signal. It means the rightful, just leader is about to step forward.
And in that very same poem, Ali describes the Mahdi, but maybe not in the way you'd expect. He isn't described as some established, wealthy king with massive political backing. No, he's a youth from the boys, someone with no prior public standing or worldly clout. But he is the exact namesake of the messenger of God. Ali holds him in such incredibly high regard that he says, "May my soul be his ransom," practically begging his sons not to abandon him when the time comes.
The geography of how this Qayyim, this rising leader, emerges is mapped out with incredible precision. It's a definitive march sweeping right out of the east. He rises in Khorasan, pushes through Kerman and Multan, and passes the island of Bani Kawan. And as he moves, his momentum just builds and builds. He's joined by distinct, named regional forces from Gilan and Dailam. It is a highly calculated, totally unstoppable geographic sweep. So here is the crucial contrast. As a direct result of this campaign, you have the once unstoppable banners of the Turks scattering, exposed in all their flaws and weakness. And on the flip side, the awaited Qayyim rises in absolute honor and virtue. He might appear in worn clothes, but he is elevating humanity. The texts are making it clear, the very second the Qayyim emerges, the old powers shatter, their era ends, and a new dawn of justice begins.
The narration closes with this absolutely profound blessing. Blessed is he who reaches his time and witnesses his days. It takes this incredibly intense, complex military history lesson and turns it into a state of deep spiritual anticipation. It transforms what began as a warning about terrifying invasions into an ultimate message of hope. To wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a provocative thought. We've just seen how history has already validated the immense weight of these texts. A voice from the 7th century perfectly detailed the faces of an invading army 500 years before they even showed up. So if those historical anchors prove true, how closely should we be watching the map today? What other unseen realities are unfolding exactly as written right before our very eyes? Keep learning, keep watching, and thank you for joining me on this deep dive.